Hello, and welcome to a Pokemon XD Gale Darkness video, where today I'm going to be completing the game with a team of 2 Clamperls. Now, what makes Clamperl interesting is that it has 2 items that allow it to evolve, either the Deep Sea Tooth or the Deep Sea Scale. However, they also have uses outside of evolution, that being that the Deep Sea Tooth doubles Clamperl's special attack stat and the Deep Sea Scale doubles its special defense stat. So even though they're not fully evolved Pokemon, they will have some pretty outrageous stats because of these items. So with that, let's first go ahead and go over their stats. A base Clamperl has 35 HP, 64 attack, 85 defense, 74 special attack, 55 special defense, and 32 speed. However, holding the Deep Sea Tooth item, it actually raises that 74 base special attack to 128, which is very strong, and it changes the special defense of 55 to 110. And while that might not seem as useful as raising your special attack, because it's only got 35 HP and 32 speed, it's going to be taking attacks a lot. So now with its 110 special defense in conjunction with its 85 defense, it's actually going to be able to survive attacks a lot better, which is definitely going to help in the long run. Now going over to their moves, of course they both share the same level up learn set of Clamp, Iron Defense, Water Gun, and Whirlpool. However, that is all they get. So we instead need to move over to their Tutor and TM lists, where we see that it's all either Water, Normal, or Ice type moves. And Water and Ice is a great combination because it hits just about every type in the game for at least neutral damage. However, having to be reliant on TM and Tutor moves unfortunately means that one Clamperl is going to restrict the other from learning attacks that it would otherwise want, such as Ice Beam being a one-time TM and all the Tutor moves being one-time. And even though there are some TMs like Blizzard that you can buy, it being 70% accurate is a steep cost to actually use the move. So it all comes down to the luck of hidden power to possibly get some type diversity. Anyway, with that, let's go ahead and move on to our first Clamperl. This one's holding the Deep Sea Tooth, and it has a modest nature, raising its special attack and lowering its attack. Honestly, couldn't have asked for a better nature for it, because this is going to be our strong special attacker. They both get access to the Shell Armor ability, which blocks critical hits, which is going to be very nice because I don't need to worry about them taking a huge amount of damage. And of course it has Clamp, Iron Defense, Water Gun, and Whirlpool. Now moving on to our other Clamperl, holding the Deep Sea Scale, and it has a Docile nature, which is a neutral nature, though I think that's fine because this is going to be playing more of a supporting role. Anyway, with that, we go ahead and move on to our first act of support, and that is teaching the move Attract to the Deep Sea Scale Clamperl. That way I can stop foes in their tracks from attacking because we are so slow. And of course we're able to get to the old man fairly quickly, and that's because I just have such a strong special attack, and even having a very high special defense means that nothing in the early game really threatens me. The Abra was a little scary because it does have Thunder Punch, though it didn't actually use it, and so I'm able to get past this battle with not too much issue. Now we're already seeing right away that the other Clamperl does take quite a bit of damage over the course of a fight, which could prove problematic in the long run, but because the other one has such a high special defense and is such a good anchor, I do think that even terrible battles that go very poorly are always winnable. So with that, we get past the old man, and I'm already having trouble keeping track of them, so I've decided to change their names to Tooth and Scale. Keep it real simple. Tooth is of course more power, and Scale is more defense. Now moving on to the Red Power Ranger, and something that I've noticed is that Scale is a little bit faster, and I think that comes down to its IVs, which is very nice. Now something I really hadn't considered going into this run is because this whole challenge is tailored to the items they're holding, I'm restricted from all other items, and even though they do outclass the damage increasing items, not having access to leftovers or even the Quick Claw is going to make things a little bit more difficult. Now I decided to go on a bit of a detour to go pick up Water Pulse, that way I can get a very strong water type move, and I decided to teach it over either Clamp or Whirlpool. Now I'm not actually sure what the difference is here, but it looks like Whirlpool is just worse all around. Anyway, I run into another Clamperl. Hello there Clamperl, goodbye other Clamperl, and then we go into the battle against Lavrina. She leads with a Love Disc and a Beautifly. I go for Water Pulse and Water Gun into the Beautifly. Unfortunately I am outsped, and Water Gun really doesn't do that much damage, but Water Pulse gets a crit taking it down, though I'm not sure if that was necessary. Out comes Roselia, and really this is going to be the hardest Pokemon to defeat on her team because it's able to set up Leech Seed right away, so it's going to be healing. I don't deal super effective damage to it, so it'll take multiple turns to take down, and it also has Mega Drain, so even if I got close to taking it down, it will just heal off all that damage. And unfortunately that leaves Scale, who can't really do much damage to it, and eventually gets taken down. Now unfortunately, the Roselia is male as well, so I'm not able to use the move Attract, which could have come in handy in this fight, but I go down fairly quickly. So I decide to do a lot of leveling, get up to level 24 with both, and hopefully I'll be strong enough to at least take the Roselia down to half health as soon as it comes out. So Water Pulse is able to take down Beautifly from full health, which is very nice. I've decided to attract the Love Disc, that way it's not dealing a little bit of damage every turn. I go for Water Pulse and Water Gun, which nearly takes down Roselia, and it gets confused, so there is a chance that it will just hit itself in confusion. It does, so it's not able to attack, and Water Gun doesn't quite finish it off. Okay, well that's just a little unfortunate, but it goes down to Water Pulse, and then she sends out her final Pokemon, the Shadow Delcatty. And while it usually is quite a threat, I do think with my level advantage, I should be able to take it down fairly easily. I go for Water Gun, dealing about a quarter, and Water Pulse takes it down. So with that, all that's left is the Love Disc, which can't take both of us down, and after a Water Pulse takes it down to low red, all that's left is one last Water Gun to finish it off. So after 4 attempts, we finally beat Lavrina, and you can't have a Pokemon XD Gallidarksis video without the obligatory Mirror Bee. How are you doing on this fine day, Mirror Bee? Well, it's always good to see ya, and we go to the Railgam Tower to go pick up our 2 favorite TMs, Hidden Power and Protect, and I'm going to teach Hidden Power to both of them. Hopefully I'll be able to get a decent Hidden Power type, and I pick up the move for Blizzard just in case I need Scale to have that extra amount of damage. So with that, what Hidden Power types did they get? Well, Tooth got Hidden Power Grass at 61 base power, so that's pretty good, and it's going to be great for taking down the Quagsire in the next boss fight. And Scale got Hidden Power Fighting at 44 base power. Okay, that's not great because it's not a physical attacker, but because I'm already down this road, I may as well get rid of Hidden Power with Body Slam, that way I can at least get that 10% chance to paralyze, I guess. Anyway, I teach Ice Beam to Tooth over Water Gun, and then we finally go into the battle against Snaddle. He leads with a Quagsire and a Lantern, and I go for Body Slam into the Lantern, hoping for a Paralysis, which I actually do get, and I go for Hidden Power, taking down the Quagsire right away, and then he sends out his Shadow Lunatone, and I'm not sure if Water Pulse is going to take it down in a single hit, so I decide to go for Water Gun as well, and Water Gun is dealing great damage, and Water Pulse finishes it off, but I think that Water Pulse could have done it on its own. Anyway, Cast Form comes out, Lantern goes for Shockwave, taking out Tooth, which is very unfortunate because now it's just left to Scale. Body Slam is dealing decent damage to Lantern, but without a crit, okay. With a crit, it goes down, then out comes the Metang, his final Pokemon, but unfortunately Scale goes down to Cast Form, and we go into the battle once again. This time I'm at full health and not poisoned, so I've decided that I need to take down the Lantern right away, because I did get very lucky that it was paralyzed last time, but if it just continuously hits the Shockwaves, it is going to do a lot of damage, and Quagsire always has a 20% chance to miss the Rock Tombs, which it does on the very first turn. Go for Water Pulse, which does take down Lunatone in a single hit, then out comes Cast Form, and Quagsire actually misses a second Rock Tomb, which is very nice. Fruity Pebbles rain down, I go for Water Pulse into the Cast Form, which might be able to take it down in a single hit. Body Slam does get a Paralysis on Quagsire, and Cast Form does go down. And then he sends out his last Pokemon once again, that Metang. Fruity Pebbles rain down, dealing just a little bit of chip damage, which could come in handy. And I go for Body Slam to finish off the Quagsire, and another Water Pulse, which unfortunately doesn't come out because Tooth gets hit by a Thunder Punch. So it's all up to Scale. I go for Water Gun, and it's looking to do about a quarter, but with the extra tip damage from the Shadow Sky, maybe it'll be a 3-shot, and it looks like it will be. Thunder Punch takes me down to 6, but because I'm able to outspeed, I finish off Metang and beat Snaddle on the second attempt. Now moving right along to the battle against Gonzap, he leads with an Electrode and a Nuzleaf, and luckily the Nuzleaf and Electrode decide to target Scale, and there's no paralysis either from Spark. I'm able to take down Electrode with a Water Pulse, and then out comes Vileplume, and because I have Ice Beam, it's going to go down very quickly. Body Slam doesn't quite take down Nuzleaf, but it does deal a lot of damage. Tooth gets taken down to 12 HP, Vileplume goes down, sending out his next Pokemon, a Whiscash, and I go for Body Slam into the Nuzleaf to finish it off. And Skarmory comes out, Whiscash hits a Rock Tomb into Scale, lowering my speed, but it shouldn't really matter at this point. Go for Hidden Power Grass to take down the Whiscash, and all that's left is the Skarmory, which hits a Hyper Beam into Scale, and Water Pulse finishes it off. So a very easy fight, though very lucky. And soon after, I run into another Clamperl. Hello, other Clamperl. Goodbye, other Clamperl. And we go into the battle against Gorgon. He leads with a Celio and a Lairon, and I go for Hidden Power Grass to take down the Celio, and Scale really doesn't have much to do on this first turn, so I decide to set up Iron Defense. That way, if I do get hit by a physical move, it's not dealing as much damage. I go for Body Slam, taking Slowking down a little ways for Hidden Power to finish off, and then out comes Ursaring. Lairon hits an Earthquake, dealing almost nothing to Scale, dealing a little bit of damage to Tooth though. I decide to go for Body Slam into Lairon, hoping for a Paralysis, but I don't get it. Water Pulse takes down the Ursaring, then out comes his first Shadow Pokemon, which is a Shadow Primeape, and it should go down fairly easily as well. Earthquake is already dealing a little bit of damage for me. Shadow Rush takes Tooth down to 22, Water Gun takes down the Lairon, sending out his final Pokemon, a Shadow Hypno. And Water Pulse finishes off the Primeape, just leaving that Hypno to take down. I go for Water Pulse and Body Slam, it hits the Shadow Storm, taking Tooth down, and Scale takes almost nothing from it, so as long as it doesn't get a crit, I think I'm safe. And Body Slam takes it down to low red, Shadow Storm takes me down to 15, and it gets finished off by one last Body Slam. So with that, we're going into the final area of the game, and they are actually doing quite well for themselves, so hopefully they'll be able to keep that up in the battle against Lavrina. She leads with Gardevoir and Gorbis, and I go for Body Slam into Gardevoir. It's able to hit a Thunder Punch, dealing a little bit of damage, though no paralysis, until I actually get paralysis with Body Slam, and because of its Synchronize ability, it paralyzes me. Tooth is able to take down Gorbis with a Hidden Power Grass. I go for Ice Beam to take down Roselia, and then out comes Farfetch'd, her first Shadow Pokemon, and it may be a threat, especially if it outspeeds me. I go for Body Slam, finishing off the Gardevoir, and then out comes her final Pokemon, a Shadow Altaria. Now, I'm almost certain that I'm actually slower than the Farfetch'd, so I decide to take down the Altaria first because I'm figuring that I'm going to get confused right away, but luckily Tooth actually avoids it, is able to take down the Altaria with Ice Beam, and now all that's left is the Farfetch'd, which takes half its health and damage from Body Slam, actually gets paralyzed, so Tooth can finish it off with a Water Pulse. So with that, we beat Lavrina, and we move on to Snaddle. He leads with a Quagsire and a Metang, and I go for Water Gun into the Metang start, dealing a little bit of damage to it. That way Water Pulse can definitely finish it off. Then out comes Scizor. Quagsire uses Mudshot, lowering my speed, but really it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be slower than just about everything anyway. So for Wind, deals a little bit more damage to Tooth, and unfortunately it gets the Omni Boost, though it does still go down to a single Water Pulse. And then out comes his first Shadow Pokemon, a Shadow Solrock. And I might have been a bit too brazen here because I think that a single Water Gun will be able to take down Solrock, but it doesn't. It actually survives on a little bit of HP. But the Hidden Power Grass does take down the Quagsire. Out comes Castform. And I will be able to take it down on this turn, but I am going to take a Shadow Rave. And Castform hits a Thunderbolt. Luckily, it attacks Scale. Solrock goes down, sending out his final Pokemon, a Shadow Starmie. Hidden Power takes down the Starmie, and then all that's left is that Castform, which even if it does take down Tooth at this point, I think Scale is strong enough to take it down. Body Slam does well over half. Shadow Storm does put me down to 44 HP, but I survive with 19 and take the Castform down. Now before the next fight, I decide to go ahead and teach Scale Rain Dance. That way I can raise the power of water type moves and also mess with Pokemon that start up the weather. Speaking of, he leads with a Shadow Swallow and Alakazam, and the Shadow Swallow is going to set up Shadow Sky on the first turn, so I decide to go for Rain Dance to counter that. Tooth gets hit by a Thunder Punch, and Ice Beam takes down the bird right away. Unfortunately, Alakazam does do over half with a Thunder Punch, so that is going to be an issue. I just have to hope that it attacks Scale from here on out. But unfortunately that is not the case. Tooth goes down, and Body Slam doesn't even take down Alakazam from full health. So I might need a bit more training. However, it also could have been a range, so I might go ahead and give it another attempt just to see if maybe I got unlucky. Anyway, after Mega Horn hits and finishes off Scale, I do just that, go back into the battle once again, and instead I decide to go ahead and try to take down the Swallow and Alakazam right away, but as it turns out, it's not a range. Alakazam is still taking just about the same amount of damage, and unfortunately I'm in a much worse position because now the Shadow Sky is up, and even though Alakazam is going to go down this next turn, unfortunately it does do quite a bit of damage to Scale before it does that. Body Slam takes Kingdra down to half, and Ice Beam finishes it off, bringing out his Heracross. And the Fruity Pebbles finally finish off the Alakazam, bringing out his next Shadow Pokemon, a Shadow Electabuzz. And unfortunately, it does a ton of damage and outspeeds, and because the Shadow Sky is out, it is doing much more damage with its Shadow moves. I decide to set up Rain to lower that amount of damage, and then Electabuzz goes down to a Water Pulse. And then he sends out his final Pokemon, a Shadow Snorlax. I go for Body Slam into it, hoping for a paralysis, but unfortunately Scale gets taken down. I take down Heracross. Snorlax misses a Shadow Wind. It is only 60% accurate. I go for another Water Pulse, taking it down to half, and Shadow Wind finishes me off. So after a rough start, if I'm able to get past that, I know for a fact I can take down Snorlax as long as it just misses one Shadow Wind. So I do a bit of training to get Scale up to level 61, and now Alakazam goes down to a single Body Slam, go for Ice Beam to take down the Swallow, and then he sends out his Kingdra and Heracross. And honestly, Kingdra really isn't that much of a threat, it's just going for Double Edge, so I decide to target the Heracross to take it down right away, and I set up Rain Dance, that way I can deal more damage to the Snorlax once it comes out. Mega Horn hits Scale, taking it down very low. Heracross goes down, then out comes that Electabuzz, and hopefully it won't be able to take down either of my Pokemon. I go for Water Pulse into the Electabuzz, and I decide to go for Attract into Kingdra, hoping that it just won't attack one of the turns. And luckily, I'm able to survive on slivers with both. Electabuzz goes down, and then out comes Snorlax. Now it does come back to luck all around. Hopefully I get it. Kingdra is in love. Ice Beam's able to take it down. The Snorlax gets paralyzed, and it misses a Shadow End, and Water Pulse and Body Slam are enough to finish it off. So despite being very close, I'm able to get by, and we move on to Gorgon once again. He leads with a Slowking and Nurturing, and I go for Rain Dance on the first turn, and Hidden Power to take down Slowking in a single turn. Then out comes the Aggron, and I go for Water Pulse into Aggron, and then I decide to set up Iron Defense once again just in case I get hit with a strong physical move. I'd like to be able to survive it without too much issue. Then out comes Walrein. Slash into Scale, perfect timing. I go for Body Slam and another Hidden Power Grass to take down the Walrein. And then out comes his first Shadow Pokemon, a Shadow Poliwrath. Now luckily it's not going to be dealing much damage because it's just going to focus on setting up Shadow Sky. And luckily Scale does outspeed, but unfortunately Tooth doesn't, so it is able to set up the Shadow Sky. And then out comes his final Pokemon, a Shadow Mr. Mime. And Mr. Mime does have the potential to deal a lot of damage, so I want to get rid of it as quick as I can. And it actually does a ton of damage. Body Slam luckily gets a crit, taking it down right away, and Water Pulse takes down the Ursaring. So now with Gorgon defeated, we move on to Eldest, who has a Shadow Manectric and Ninjask, and I need to take down the Manectric right away, but it is going to set up Shadow Sky and is faster than me, so once it sets that up, I set up the Rain Dance and go for Water Pulse to finish it off. Then out comes his next Pokemon, a Shadow Salamence, and Ice Beam should make quick work of it. However, it is going to be doing quite a bit of damage with Shadow Rush, and unfortunately, Ninjask actually gets an Omni Boost with Silver Wind, so it's going to be doing more damage as the fight continues. I decide to set up Iron Defense and take down the Salamence with the Ice Beam. Then out comes Flygon, and another Ice Beam will take it down. Another Silver Wind dealing a lot more damage now, and Tooth goes down to a Double Edge. I go for Attract into the Ninjask just so it won't attack so much, and in hindsight, maybe I should have done that from the beginning because Silver Wind only has 5 PP. So I go for Body Slam into Flygon. It's really not doing that much damage, and its Double Edges aren't really doing that much damage to me either. So unfortunately, this is a very slow fight to actually get past the Flygon, though I will prevail. And I will get to his next Pokemon, which is a Shadow Marowak. Now, unfortunately, at this point, I don't have any Water-type moves, so there's no real reason to even try to take down the Marowak. Instead, I try taking down the Ninjask, but I get taken down before I can do so. So, going into the battle once again, and now I have learned my lesson that I am going to use Attract on the following turn into the Ninjask. That way, it's not going to be hitting nearly as much, and hopefully won't get the Omni Boost. Out comes Salamence once again, and I go for Ice Beam to take it down, and hopefully it decides to attack Scale, that way Tooth isn't taking so much damage. Luckily it does. I'm able to get off the Attract on Ninjask, and Ice Beam takes down the Salamence in a single hit. Then out comes Flygon. Tooth is in a much better spot this time. I go for Body Slam into the Ninjask, and another Ice Beam into the Flygon to take it down. And Ninjask without the defense boost is taking over half damage to Body Slam, and then he sends out his next Pokemon, the Shadow Marowak, and this time I actually do have super effective damage to use against it, and in hindsight I should have used Water Pulse, but I'm not sure if it's really going to matter because Ice Beam should be more than enough to take it down. It does, and then all that's left is his final Pokemon, a Shadow Lapras. Now luckily it does just go for Shadow Sky on the first turn, so Body Slam gets a Lucky Paralysis, very nice, and Hidden Power takes it down in a single hit. That's incredible. Anyway, now moving on to the battle against Shadowlogia, and after that last fight, I think that the Ice Beam should be able to take it down in a single hit. But just to be safe, I go for Body Slam, get a Lucky Paralysis, Ice Beam does. So with that, we move on to the final boss, Gravel, who leads with a Rhydon and Moltres, and I go for Water Pulse into Moltres to probably take it down in a single hit. Tooth does take quite a bit of damage from Shadow Fire though. Moltres goes down, and then out comes Executor. Now I am hoping that Rhydon misses, that way I can get a bit further into the battle, and luckily it does. And it's at this point that I notice that Executor is female, so I can go for Attract on it, and it'll make it a 50-50 whether or not it actually attacks, plus it's only using a 60% accurate move. So with that, it goes for Shadow Hold. Okay, well that is actually never a good sign, because that means it's going for Shadow Storm, more likely than not. So that means that it's now a 100% accurate move it's using, which is definitely not great. Luckily it is immobilized by Love on this turn. Go for Body Slam into Articuno, and it does a little bit of damage. Water Pulse doesn't quite take it down, and yep, it's going for Shadow Storm. Tooth goes down, but Scale takes it fairly well. Go for another Body Slam, hopefully take down the Articuno. It does, and then that brings out his final Pokemon, which is Zapdos. But unfortunately this is the end because Shadow Wind hits, taking Scale down. So now going into it for a second attempt, maybe I just got a bit unlucky. Well, Tooth gets hit by a Shadow Fire right away. Water Pulse is still enough to take down the Moltres though, and with the rain up, I know that's dealing even more damage. Scale is able to survive a Shadow Wind from Rhydon with half health. I once again go for Attract into Executor, and then Water Pulse to take down the Rhydon, bringing out his Tauros. And because it's going to set up Shadow Sky, I need to set up the rain. Except I actually forget to do that on this attempt. So the Shadow Sky is up, which is very unfortunate because that means that the legendary birds are going to be dealing even more damage with their shadow moves. And Executor also gets that same effect, dealing enough damage to take down Tooth and nearly take down Scale. So definitely not a great second attempt, and after a few more attempts I decide to go over to the tutor lady and go ahead and teach Substitute to Tooth. And the reason for that is because the strongest Pokemon are special attackers, and while Scale can shrug off most of the damage fairly well, Tooth takes so much damage that I definitely need the extra survivability. And even if it doesn't go as planned, the Substitute only eats a quarter of your max HP rather than their moves doing over half. So I go back into the battle once again, I take down the Moltres, and now I just need Rhydon to not hit. Unfortunately it does. I go for Attract into the Executor, and then I go for Water Pulse into the Rhydon. He then sends out his Tauros, and this is the perfect opportunity to set up Substitute because the Tauros isn't going to be attacking, and Executor is already not going to be doing much because of the Attract. So I set up the Rain, set up Substitute, and the Tauros is going to want to set up the Shadow Sky once again, so I'm able to set up a Rain once again, go for Water Pulse to take it down, getting a crit, but it was absolutely not necessary. He then sends out Articuno, and Executor unfortunately hits a Shadow Storm, taking Tooth's Substitute out. So unfortunately, despite all the setup, it didn't go quite as well as I thought. Body Slam and Water Pulse are enough to take down Articuno now though. Then out comes his final Pokemon Zapdos, and as long as Executor stays infatuated and Tooth doesn't get hit by Zapdos, I think I'm safe. Scale gets taken down to 16, Body Slam and Ice Beam finish it off, and all that's left is the Executor, which is immobilized by Love once again. Go for Body Slam, which was definitely not needed because Ice Beam takes it down. So after 12 attempts against Gravel, how well did these two do? Well, they beat the game at a time of 12 hours, 2 minutes, and 22 seconds at level 71, with 31 feints throughout the game, 11 of those to random trainers and 20 of those to bosses. And I think the real crux of the issue really isn't the move pool, because even though that was an issue, it actually didn't hurt nearly as bad as I thought it would. I think it's just the fact that they have low health and low speed, and also Tooth has low special defense. So it makes them very frail and very slow. And strangely enough, that's really the only negative I can think of, because they're very solid throughout 99% of the game. Now, they did get lucky with Hidden Power Grass, which definitely sped up a few of the fights, but it only actually applies to like 3 of the boss fights, which, don't get me wrong, it's really nice that it was Hidden Power Grass. It definitely made those fights a little bit easier, but with the power of the Deep Sea Tooth, I think it wouldn't have been an issue even if it hadn't had Hidden Power Grass. So I think overall these are just very solid Pokemon that are able to overcome their flaws with their held items. So it's definitely a very interesting run. Like I said before, I wasn't able to use the Quick Claw or Leftovers, which could have come in very handy, especially in the final fights, but even though Grable took quite a few attempts, I don't feel like it was all that bad of a fight. So they find themselves in the B tier, and with that, if you did enjoy this video, consider liking and subscribing. If you have any Pokemon suggestions, please put them down below. Thank you so much for watching, and bye!